Hey guys, me again, Doug. Coming back here to finish off your communication thing for part one. Gonna take about 10 minutes here. My hair looks crazy. I'm going bald and all that. But hang in there. It's kind of late. I want to get this done for you. Okay, so we left off talking about communication needing to have some hurdles neutralized. We left up on number 8 called distractions, and now we're going to talk about number 9, stimulation. People really are overly stimulated in our society. They like excitement, but they're almost addicted to enthusiasm. So when you're communicating, you might be talking to some folks that are just excessively burnt out through the week from the stimulation they've had, which means this: any communication you do should be simple. It shouldn't be exhausting. It should be sort of, direct and normal and natural to people. The key is always finish when people want more. Don't overly stimulate them. It's perfectly okay to say, I'm not done yet. Believe me or not, people will like that. Okay. 10, scarcity as a communication tool. It is perfectly fine to limit what you're going to offer for a certain period of time. It keeps people's interest. Number 11, in communicating, many people have biases, and these biases can be toward other people, what they dress, their race, whatever, but you need to deal with biases people may have against what you're talking about. And number 12, big enemy is disinterest. You have to keep their interest within about 7 to 10 seconds. Honestly, maybe at most 30, because they, Americans today, as I said, are quite stimulated. They have many great experiences. They aren't like people even 60 years ago where the sermon may have been the most entertaining part of their week. But people live in sort of a low-grade disinterest about everything. So you have to tweak their interest just within a few seconds. What I do on my notes when I speak is I start with a joke. I try to get a joke, not force it or anything. If I don't have one that fits, I don't do it. But you need to do something that gets their interest right off, or start with a very inviting story from the Bible or otherwise, something that piques their interest right off. Don't stand up and start reading a Bible verse right off and begin, because you've got the disinterest factor going and it's going to affect your communication. Okay, next section. Some very simple things to remember as you prepare to communicate to people of any, whether it's a funding letter or a letter to leaders or training of any kind. Here's what they are. I always put this on my notes. What do you want them to know? I suggest you have just one, maybe 3 facts you want them to know, truths you want them to know, sections of the Bible you want them to know, or character traits you want them to know. Keep it there and have very few. One is best. But you want to know what you want them to know before you start, and don't have too much. 2, what do you want them to feel? That's an important one. When I go, I want people to feel sometimes courageous. Sometimes I want them to feel somber. But you need to know where you're headed with this message. And here's a little key. People nearly never remember what you're saying a few weeks later, but they always forever remember how they felt after you spoke. So commandeer the feeling there. And by the way, communication is about 80% emotion. So key on it. Number 3, what do you want them to do? Believe it or not, people don't come back very often if you give them week after week after week of information download, and there's no specific call to action. You've got to give them things to do. You just have to. So you need to work at that. So sorry, I got a little text there. Okay, so you need to do with action steps. Tell them what to do. This, that, and the other. If you tell them to present the gospel, tell them how. Say, hey, go talk to your neighbor for 3 minutes. Give them something to do. Okay. Speaking that doesn't lead to action creates hard ground and creates slow listeners and all of that. Okay, Now, next time we get together, I'm going to present to you the 12-step process to complete conversion. And I want to mention it now because all communication must be intended to bring people to the complete gospel. Now, my conviction and study of the New Testament is that Jesus didn't stop at what I call stage 6 in his explanation of the gospel, nor did the disciples. The final culmination of your conversion is to be sent yourself to go be a messenger, prophetic person, or whatever. So when you lead someone to Christ and you just take them to, say, to water baptism, because the process starts out with curiosity, participation, belonging, joining, and then leads to surrender, baptism, and then it takes you all the way in. But the 12th step has to be to release them to do tasks, I think, on their own. Okay? Now, not everyone is an equal learner, you're going to find out. Most Americans read at the 5th grade level. So when you communicate, you've got to remember that. There are little things in your computer, Mac has them, that you can check the level that you're communicating at. If you get over that, people will stop listening after a while. 2, those who graduate from college read usually at the 8th grade level. So if you've gone to graduate school or you read a whole lot, which most pastors do, you run the risk of being too difficult for people to hear, and they will, sort of tune off because it's too much work for them to remember these words and all that. Number 3, remember this, it takes a base knowledge of truth to understand things. So you want to always be building a base knowledge or understanding, whatever it means, webinars, seminars, whatever. You need to be aware of what the base understanding of a group is. Now, I teach every once in a while up north to an established church. It's been there 30 years. They've not had a lot of evangelism growth. I was usually the youngest one, even at 64. So I know something about these people. They have a significant foundation in the scriptures. So I don't hold back. I go more into a teaching mode and tell stories that are related to that kind of thing. Now, number 4, you want to know the background of the church and definitions that they have. Okay? Common words don't have common definitions from one group to the other. So you want to have a glossary. I encourage you to have a glossary of terms that you work with. Here's something embarrassing I had happen. I am a big advocate of women getting ordained doing ministry. Well, I spoke at a denomination that's one of their favorite doctrines, that you don't get to do that. Women don't get to. So I called it immoral, people who held that position. And they were unhappy because I took that posture. They assumed that I knew their doctrines, but I didn't. So be careful, okay? Some people have to control their input. In other words, you're going to have a lot of people who, sort of will listen selectively. They will. So you have to know that. You have to be aware of what that may be. Some really struggle with dissonance and ambiguity. People need a lot of clarity, and they don't like a lot of disagreement. So don't bring up and say, I don't agree with such and so, but such and so believes this. I believe that. Don't do that. It creates dissonance. People don't want to listen to that. That's for scholarly discussions. Not all people have the same comfort with risk, so you got to figure that out. 8, you have to understand that God does speak through our minds. Take your time, get a thought through. Number 9, they are always concerned whether they can fit in or not. People, as you listen, always wonder if they can live up to what you're asking them to do. So obviously, you have to keep it at a level where they can. Don't lead them into stuff that can be too hard for them. And 10, they will want to know how this is going to help people they love. Okay. In the next few days, I'll get the final sections, and you'll have the complete course. God bless you.